Welcome to the Membership Business Growth Podcast, the #1 podcast for martial arts and fitness business owners. We'll dive deep with industry legends to bring you insider secrets on marketing, sales, retention strategies, and life's balancing act. Get expert tips for business growth right here, right now on the Membership Business Growth Podcast. Let's kickstart the action with your host, Ron Sell.
All right, welcome to the Membership Business Growth Podcast. I'm Ron Sell, and we're really excited today. I've got a good friend of mine, Josh Smith, and he is just an incredible human being. His story is amazing, and he runs a few locations. And so welcome, Josh. I'm glad you're here, brother.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, good deal, man. So, hey, do me a favor and tell me a little bit about, your background and what you do.
I currently own 3 studios in Nashville, Tennessee. At one point recently, I had 4 or 5 different locations and left the premier franchise. That's kind of a long story, but I am independent and in the process of just launching my own brand. I've exited the premier brand about 3 or 4 months ago. And so mine are called Hero Martial Arts. And they're all in the greater Nashville, Tennessee area. And my studios, what I find to be unique about them is that I have a sport karate background. I was a point fighter for most of my career. And when I went into business, everyone's like, you can't just teach a lot of tournament stuff. And there's some truth to that, I think, or at least it's about balance. But I think that I have found somewhat of a balance point because I've been able to scale to multiple locations and have it systemized and interchange instructors as well and still keep the systems going. So each one of my schools has a fairly large, like 20, 25 member tournament team, mostly kids, but we travel all around the region. And so it's kind of cool to have a balance between commercialized schools that still have a nice element of some competition to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys, I'm sure, do pretty well at competitions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag. Like anything, when you're training a lot of kids, you have some that are really good athletes and some that are not. Martial arts, I would say, is somewhat known to get kids that maybe didn't make it out on the soccer teams or baseball teams or football, which is cool. Like, I want to be able to provide that for them, and this still gives them a competitive outlet. And I've been able to have a lot of joy by watching kids that still developed into athletes by the way of martial arts that probably would not have done that in another arena.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That was me. I was terrible at everything, and martial arts changed my life. Made me an athlete.
Yeah.
Took a little time, took a lot of effort, but it totally changed my life. Right. So,
Yes.
yeah. So you've got the best of both worlds. So you're still doing the tournament scene and you're successful with that. You've got kids that love that, but also you have a pretty successful, obviously you've got 3 locations now. You've got a pretty successful business at the same time. I've heard the same thing from people where, you either choose one, you're a competition level school, or you're, you let that go and you're just involved in the business aspect. But it sounds like you've been able to balance both those out really well.
For sure. In my advice, not that you were asking it in that type of formality, but really concentrate on building the business is always my advice to people, and maybe provide opportunities and outlets for the kids to be able to compete. In-school tournaments is a great way.
Yeah.
We're hosting one tomorrow, and it still allows them to do that and even build some culture around the competition. But over the last decade, I've not really been able to spin off like any NASCAR level champions or anything like that. So I don't think that should be someone's focus. We should go into business and obviously look to make it a business which turns profit, and then from there kind of have that upward trajectory to where the kids could do demo teams, or they could, which we don't do demo, but if someone did, or competition team, that's
sure.
kind of an upward push.
Yeah. I've been in martial arts since I was 7 years old, and that was a long time ago. I'm 51 right now, so that was a long time ago. I started at 7-year-olds, and there's still people training that were training with me back then to this day. So I'm not the only one that made it. And I often look back and I say, why? And part of it, I think, was we did have tournament teams. And we did have demo teams. And the people that were on those demo teams and tournament teams are still training. Like we all became a family. Like we all bonded. And, that caused us to fall in love with the martial arts and stay, for however many years it's been. But we all stayed together and continue training from that. So I think it's powerful to have, leadership teams and tournament teams and demonstration teams and whatever, SWAT teams, if you remember those.
Yeah.
It's a
You make a good point.
powerful aspect.
Ryan, I've never even really thought of that if it was the absence of tournaments I'm 42, would I still be training? And I bet the answer to that is no. I bet if it wasn't for the tournament scene myself, I wouldn't be. Just like as a recreational martial artist that would pop into a dojo or something, I'm sure I wouldn't. So it's absolutely the
Yeah.
tournaments that have kept me in there as well.
I think maybe it's different things for different people, right? Like some tournaments make people want to quit. You get out there and you get hurt or you lose. Some people can't handle losing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you quit because of tournaments. But I think there's a segment of your student body that's going to take to that, and that's what's going to keep them training long term.
Yes.
Right on. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about, obviously you've got 3 locations, so a little bit about growth. And that's what this podcast is about. The podcast is really about, how do we share some of the things that we know as fact because we've lived it, to help schools that are listening, grow their membership and impact more lives.
For sure. The thing that I made a huge mistake on when I first opened my businesses, I really we should do a whole podcast like on what not to do in business, because that's really how life started for me. And no website, no paid marketing, no Facebook page, just using kind of my personal page to do some things here and there, but everything wrong out of the gate. And a couple years later, this is back when Mike Perella had the websites and the 6-week paid trial, and back when Facebook would let you for about $400 a month worth of ad spend, and you'd sell all these paid trials every month. It was like what I call the golden years of Facebook. We're no longer there, unfortunately. But
right on. A little more expensive than that nowadays, but worth it still.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Definitely need to be doing it. And so, I got hip to that, and I ended up with like 150 paying members. Where I've been feeling miserably for the first 2 years. But I was in the back of this tanning salon, and I did not even have a sign out. They would not let me put a sign up that said karate or dojo or anything. So I was in the backside of this room, this big warehouse room that they would rent me, and I called it the hidden dojo, and you just kind of had to know the place was there. But I filled it up with social media marketing, content, and a good website, and so that was really my first experience at growth. And as I've already sort of alluded to a little bit here, I ended up joining the Premier franchise 7 or 8 years ago when it was a really solid organization, and they taught me a lot about internal marketing, community events, but I didn't lean real heavily on those things because the social media thing really worked well. I'm really into creating content. I put out a lot of content, and I've been doing that for some years. I might have been one of the original OGs of always just smashing out a lot of content. And but Facebook started changing over the last couple of years, where it got incredibly a little bit more competitive and difficult to just be 100% digital only. So I'm personally seeing this little return current in real time, right now, where we're having to pivot a little bit and try to do a little bit more personalized, almost like we're back in the 90s again a little bit, like some grassroots guerrilla style marketing, community events, monthly internal things like your mass intros or different workshops. And but I said all that to say this, that I think that we should always have more than one fishing pole in the pond anyways, and we should be doing a little bit of each one of these things.
Yeah, 100%. I preach it all the time. I think you should have at least 6 fishing poles out there every single month, right? Can you explain, to some people that don't understand what we're talking about when we say fishing poles and that kind of stuff? Can you explain, what that means to you?
Yes. And so just in short, like a mass intro, like ABCs of Success or the Bully Proof Workshop, a birthday party where they invite guests, maybe your parents' night out party where they buddy weeks within your school, go to the fall festivals, the farmers markets, the parent teacher workshops in the schools, and just different things like that that would aim your social media. So like if you looked at it that way, I probably just listed 6 or 8 different ways. And so
Right.
collectively at the end of a month, if we got just 1 or 2 students from each one of those, that's 12, 14, 16 students right there, which for
Right.
most schools would really do the trick.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that all of the stuff that you said is a lot of work. However, it produces some really great results. I also think that, advertising uh, on social media or wherever, that is like, to me, icing on the cake, right? But you still have to have the cake. If you just eat the icing,
Yeah.
you could get sick sometimes, right? And
Yes.
so what I love about internal events like birthday parties, parents' night outs, seminars, things like that you do in your school. And then external events being like doing a demo at the local church or, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or wherever, mall booth, that kind of stuff. The reason I think that those things are so powerful is because they're pretty predictable if you get really good at it, right? And how do you
Yes.
get good at it? You just put in the reps, just like anything else, right? But if you can, my mentor told me all the time, man, there's not one way to get 20 new members, but there is 20 different ways to get one member each. And I believe that. And I've
I like
seen that in
that.
my own life, absolutely. Right. The problem is martial arts school owners, a lot of times, they gravitate toward the easy stuff. Like, hey, I can just throw money at ads. But sometimes ads don't work. Like I know last year, November and December were tough because
Yeah.
November was, you had Black Friday, which means everybody like Best Buy and Walmart, they're spending millions of dollars, and we ain't got that kind of money. And if we did have that kind of money, we wouldn't put it in ads. So they were beating us out. They were getting the traffic, they were getting the space, instead of us. So you have to have like I wouldn't say a backup plan, because I think that events and internal marketing, external marketing, I think those things should be the cake, and then the icing on the cake would be anything that you get from digital marketing.
Yes,
You
I
feel
agree.
like the same way? Or?
Yes, yes. And I'm one of these guys that you just talked about. Like I'd gotten so good at content creation and throwing $2,000 or $3,000 a month per location on ad spend, because I'd spend it because I was getting that many leads come. But I
Right.
started noticing this last year, like leads are dropping, quality of leads were getting bad, and it was just becoming a different playing field. But I held a staff meeting in the last month or two, and I explained to my team the same thing you said. I'm like, look, we're like a micro business by definition, like not even hardly a small business in the grand scheme of things. And so we're
Compared
trying
to
to.
other business types, other
Correct.
businesses in our,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So trying to when I'm spending $2,000 and acting like that's a big part of my marketing budget, like there's companies out there that are they're spending that every day, not every month,
Yeah.
and so I'm not getting a lot of play for that. And so yeah, I'm having to kind of get back out there a little bit and act like it's the '90s and run referral contests and go beat the streets and but
Hey,
that's
the
all good
90s,
stuff.
the 90s were a good time, man. We had grunge back then, brother. So,
Oh yeah, yeah,
the
I
stuff
loved it.
still works. So you talk about content, you're doing content, and I see a lot of your content on Facebook, and I recommend anybody follow you, because it's, the things that you're doing in your community, the impact that you're making, I just love. That's why I reached out to you to be on here. But can you talk to us a little bit about what some of the content that you've created that actually has worked? Like it brought you people inside your school and eventually, enrolled. What are some of the ideas on that?
I try to just be 100% authentic with what I'm putting out. And it's kind of funny because I could definitely be more focused towards like on my page of marketing to get students, but that's really not ever really even what I'm putting out. It's me just putting out what's on my thought and my heart. I had someone ask me the other day, like, hey, how do you come up with what you post? And I said, usually I think about it in the shower, like that day or even the day before. And like, then I'm like
Yeah.
spinning the idea around in my spirit a little bit and I just put it out there. So it's really just me being authentic, but a lot of times it's my life story and just some of my life struggles and things that I've been through. I celebrated 14 years clean and sober this last year, and so I'll post about addiction and different people that I work with on this journey. I do public speaking some now and presentations in schools, and I've been teaching an entrepreneur class for the Department of Corrections and the prisons, and and I'm just real transparent about my life,
Yeah.
my experiences, my struggles. I've really got a heart for, my dad left me when I was a young kid, and I post a lot of things, not necessarily specific about him or that, but like helping young men to develop young men into strong grown men. And that's really like a subject matter that I'm always real near and dear to my heart. And so my martial arts mission a lot of times is built around helping that underdog kid, the one that's struggling, maybe the one that his dad left. And, society doesn't leave those kids behind.
Yeah, brother. So what's awesome about what you said, and this is exactly why I wanted you to come on and talk to us, is, I find that, people don't really buy your martial arts school. They don't sign up for your school. They sign up for you.
Right.
And you're getting on Facebook and maybe other places too. I'm not sure, but you're just being you, and people are just drawn to that. They're attracted to it because you're real, you're authentic. You don't try to hide your past. You actually use it as a lesson to help other people, and I think people can see that, and they just want to be a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. And it took some years. I share this keynote. I was in prison, and I came out, and it took some years for me to really get that type of confidence, because as a business owner, you're not really sure, like, how is this going to be received, and what are people going to say, and or if they find out you've been a drug addict, and all these different things. And I find that most people don't care, and probably really they're not too much thinking about you after they just see a 10-second glimpse on Facebook. But it hasn't had an adverse impact on me or my business or anything. Quite the opposite. Most people are like, "Oh man, that's really awesome, and I like what you're doing, and
Yeah.
I'd like to be a part of that." So
I think people love the comeback, brother, and I think
yeah,
they love a comeback that is doing things for all the right reasons. And I think that trying to hide that kind of stuff and being unauthentic. I don't even know if that's a word. Maybe I
yeah, I
just made
think
it up.
it might be. It is in Tennessee.
I really think that trying to hide that and not being your authentic self actually does you more damage, right?
Yeah,
And so, man, you're right. You're just right on the right path, and you're helping a lot of people. Obviously, you got 3 schools. You guys are crushing it, and so that's a testament to creating content that's just authentic. That's there to help people.
yeah, right.
That's the key, right?
Yeah, and not even ever really trying to sell anything too much, just kind of just laying it out there, and people get intrigued, and they're wanting to follow kind of the daily story. Now, every now and then you get some jerk that gets offended or mad or says something, but you're going to get that no matter what. And I
Yeah.
only mention that because I think a lot of people have this fear
Yes.
about being authentic, because someone is going to say something, or they already have, but they always will,
Yeah.
without a doubt. It's just the way it's going to go. So just know that you're never going to make everyone happy.
Yeah. 100%, man. I mean, I think I'm one of the nicest men in the entire world, and still people sometimes I hear rumors. They're like, "That guy's a jerk," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Like, what did I
It just,
do?
it just if you're in the public eye, people are going to want to try to take pot
Tear you
shots.
down.
Also, what I think is that anybody that don't like me is dumb. I'm just
Well,
kidding.
Ron, you probably really are the nicest guy from what I know, but I'm probably always really not. It's kind of like the yin and the yang. It kind of depends on the context in the arena. But so I will readily admit that I can be a little divisive at times, like on a personal level. But that's okay. It's who I am, and once
So how
again,
do you
I'm
deal with
authentic.
that? Like, so you're gonna be authentic. You're gonna put yourself out there. You're gonna have the courage to do that, and then somebody tries to pull you down. Like, how do you personally view that? Do you interact with that person? Do you just let it go? I mean, what's your strategy with that
Oh
stuff?
man, you just have to let it go. It's not worth entertaining. There was a time, I'm not gonna lie, like 10 years ago, 9 years ago, when I really started putting some stuff out there on social media. And I'll tell you, to give some context, I grew up really poor. and it, like in the housing projects and the trailer park, single mom, and we didn't even have a car most of the time. When I first started having business success, I went because I'd always dreamed this little trailer that I lived in. I always had posters on the wall of bright red sports cars. And so when my day came and I could finally get one, my wife and I were driving past the Chevy dealership. I saw this bright red Corvette, brand new. And she said, well, pull in there and go get it. And I had never, it just had never even occurred to me that I could go afford to buy a car like that. And so I pull in, I go in, I buy it. Like right there on the spot, and I run out the door with the keys because I'm afraid they're going to tell me to bring the keys back. And so I get in, but anyways, I just typical stuff. I was proud, man. I would post pictures of my car, my house, and different things, and it's kind of like a kid in a candy store. And just
Yeah.
looking back, like I don't do that stuff too much anymore. But at that time in my life, I was happy and proud, but I was never like being derogatory towards anyone else. I was just posting
You're just
stuff.
proud of what you've accomplished.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
but because of that, man, I never realized how many people that would rub wrong, like just brought out like the hate and the vitriol in their spirit. Like, and I would comment back sometimes like let's meet in the dojo and fight kind of stuff. Like, and you have to understand I was in a little different frame of mind at that time and a little
Yeah.
younger as well. And but no, I had a mentor in my life, and he would tell me all the time, is like, dude, you should just read some of the stuff they say on my end, like on my stuff that I put out. He's like, if you're putting stuff out there and you're being successful, you're gonna make people mad. He was like, they can deal with you when you're not successful, and if you're bottom, that's where they like you. But if you climb up, they're gonna hate on you. So he'd say, Josh, if you're gonna be successful, you're gonna have to learn how to deal with this. And so I would get my emotions back in check, and then it like got to like where it would like kind of pump me up. I'd love to just put stuff out there just to see if I'd like get someone to hate on me. But
now
now I'm
you're
over all
now
of it. I
you're
don't even.
taunting.
Yes, yes. But now I don't even care. I don't post any of that kind of stuff too much on social media. And I'm even trying to get my own self to a place like to not put so much emphasis and care that much about it. It's life is funny. Like it goes through stages, and I'm in a stage of my life now of really just trying to downsize a little bit, simplify, enjoy family and experiences more necessarily than because I've reached a point I've probably bought all the different cars I wanted and clothing or different things like, and I don't know that any of those made me happier than the one previous to it. So I'm at a place like where I'm like let's focus on the things that matter, and not worry about Facebook haters either. Like I don't even entertain that at all. I just scroll right through it.
Right on, man. So, I mean, that's good advice for folks. I mean, be authentic, get out there, point it out. I mean, put your heart out there to help people, and just ignore. We have we spend a lot of money at Spark. We spend a lot of money in ads, man. Not nearly as much as Walmart, but we do, right? And we've got this one guy that's always laughing at every one of our ads, like everyone. And I don't even know who this guy is, and he's a karate guy, and he's close. And I thought, man, I should just go down. I should just go down. Like he lives like 2 hours from me. I'm like, one day on my way down to Miami, I'm just gonna stop in and just hug him and smile at him.
You'll tear him up. You'll tear him up.
Yeah, man. Well, good deal, man. That's really awesome. So, and it sounds like you've really grown. Life has helped you, with growth, um, and learning some really cool lessons, man. And now you're just really rocking it. So that's awesome. So let me ask you about. You mentioned that you do some internal events at your school, and one thing you said was mass intros. Can you explain what your take is on that?
Yes, and I'm just now getting back into running these after about a 3 or 4 year break. But basically, you need to create an event in Facebook on your business page, and then it'll allow you daily to post a little content, some photos, videos. People can like or join this event in there, and so it's kind of like its own little nucleus of stuff where you can keep posting and adding content in it. But you need to run an ad, probably a paid ad or multiple ads that all have some sort of either Facebook form where they sign up or a link that you've created. I'm using Spark actually for my checkout link. And By the way, I'm not real good at creating those. I need some help with
Okay.
the checkout pages.
We'll
My,
get you.
my, my marketing guy is kind of like, Josh, you're like a
Well,
white belt.
let's go ahead and pull that up right now. Just a second. I'm just kidding, man.
Yeah, my marketing guy's like, dude, you're like a white belt at these checkout pages. And I'm like, I am. Like, I'm really not good at this stuff. But anyways, so you run your paid ad with some kind of content, and they click on the link, they all sign up. But what happens is you're holding an event, say a Saturday morning at 10 a.m., and you need to have a
Yeah,
theme. Goal setting for success is a big one that I use, or the ABCs of success. And
I love it.
uh, or the bully proof workshop is another one that I
Right.
pivot to. And what it is you really are legitimately holding a free community event. So you need to look at it that, like, even if no one signs up, you did tell
Yeah.
these people you were running an event for educational purposes that would
Yeah.
better the lives of these people. So look at it that first and foremost. And then if you get people to sign up, well, that's cool. It's like icing on the cake.
Right.
But it's a 30 or 40-minute lesson plan that's going to have some teaching. It needs to be very basic because your audience is going to be people from your community. They're non-martial artists. And at the end of like a 30 or 40-minute lesson, you let everyone break a board and you give a 2-minute little, I call like a soft to medium type of closing. It doesn't need to necessarily be a hard
Yeah.
sell. It's just, if you would like to get signed up today, we have a special offer, a today only offer. And up here, if you have questions, come see me to go over scheduling programs. Here's the pricing. Come get signed up if you want to. And usually I did one last month and signed up like 3 students, but only like 4 or 5 people showed up. But back in the day when we were in the habit of doing
Yeah.
these all the time, we'd sign up 10 or 15 students at a time,
Yeah.
a lot, and
Yeah.
that was common. And we would do that most every month. But
Yep.
uh, I'm trying to get back in that groove, but I'm not having as much success with my social media marketing and getting people to sign up. But I'm trying to get back into it.
Yeah. Well, I did the exact same thing. And how we would do it a lot is by using school talks. So we would, a school talk is basically, you go into a classroom at a local elementary school or a middle school or a high school, and we would do a talk, and it'd be something along the lines of what you said, ABCs of success, setting goals and for better grades, anything like that. And the teachers loved us coming in because, we really taught them skills they could use in school to become better students. And
Yeah.
so the teacher fell in love with us because we're actually teaching them some really great strategies. And the kids loved it because it was high energy. We taught it just like we would any martial arts class, and we got them all excited. And then what we do at the end, I'd ask the teacher, I'm like, hey, I've got a free community event this Saturday, and I would love to give you invitations to all the kids. And so there's 20 kids to 40 kids in a classroom, because here in Florida, I don't know how it is there in Nashville, but sometimes the classrooms are butt up against each other. So
Yeah.
both classrooms would come together. So sometimes we'd have 40 kids, and I would do like 10 of those in a week. So we have like 400 kids that were involved, during that week.
Oh,
And
man.
then we all gave the 400 invitations out, and the teachers love that, because they were like, yeah, we'll send them to another seminar like what you just did. And they weren't opposed to it, because I wasn't saying, hey, will you pass out free guest passes to come try karate, or will you hand out my
Right.
flyer? It was come to a community service event, right?
So it was one and then segueing into another one, and there's still not a hard sales process, is what you're saying.
No, it's just, real simple.
Educational.
Yeah, and it was, man. I mean, we taught, and we knew on Saturday the parents would show up too. So now, instead of trying to impress the teacher, we're impressing the parent too. So
Right.
they got to see, the strategies that we taught them during that week. They
Yeah.
got to see their kids, get out there and do well in martial arts and break the board and all that stuff, right? And we'd always do them at 10 a.m. in the morning, and then at like 2:30 in the afternoon. And the reason why we did 2 was because some kids at early in the mornings, my kids are at hockey, but some kids were at soccer or, little league or whatever it was. And so we always had 2 times. And of course we'd get less people per, but we'd have 30, 40, 50 people show up, and the same thing, man. Half of them would walk out with a uniform coming back the next week,
A Saturday
So
with
it's a
15
really
signups is a good Saturday.
Saturday with 15 signups is a really good Saturday. Was it a lot of work that I went to 10 classrooms? Yeah, but you know what? I think I think the work is worth it, not just for the 15, but we're becoming the martial arts school in our town. Everywhere I'd go to Publix and we'd have kids yell, "Hey, Master Cell," right? They might not be my students, but they remember me coming to their classroom, and that just, you keep doing that and you become the martial arts school in your town because you're everywhere. You're doing demos at the mall, you're at the school, you're doing all this community service, and it's pretty powerful. But it does take some momentum to build when you get back into it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, man. So that's really cool. And I appreciate you jumping in here and telling us a little bit about your story, and I really appreciate some of your input here. Is there anything else before we head out of here you'd love to share with our audience?
The only thing I can think of in marketing that we did not really touch on that I do know a little something about, in the event that we have someone that listens that either hasn't opened a school yet or they're going to be launching another one. I was a part of a large franchise group for the last 7 or 8 years, and on 2 different occasions I opened, I set the franchise pre-sales record. And pre-sales is a term that's not really well known in the martial arts industry. But in the event that someone was going to go and open one, don't hesitate to reach out to me, or there's probably some other folks that have done this. But I've opened on 2 separate, actually even my last location, I opened with 100, and I was disappointed that I opened with 100. But I opened one location with 185 members on day 1 from doing 12 weeks pre-sales campaigns.
Yes.
And then on the second, another location with 125, and then this last time with 100. So I've never opened with less than 100 students on day 1. And I know in our industry, people would sometimes it takes them years to get 100 if they ever get 100. And
before you even opened, you had 100 or 185 on that one occasion.
That is correct. I opened one location with like the accounts receivable already at like $18,000 some odd dollars, like on day 1. Cash flow in that way. And that's like a dream come true. And
and it takes off so much stress too, man, because typically when you sign a lease, they give you some months free, 3 months or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But you put all the build out in, you put everything in, and then traditionally what people do is they're like, all right, we're having a grand opening, and they start with 0 students. Not you, man. While you're probably building it out.
Yeah,
while you're
down in a vacant building.
You sign the lease, and I bet. Say again.
I'm 2 doors down, like in a vacancy spot, or wherever in close proximity. While the build out's happening in this studio, I'm collecting students, a few nights a week at a different secondary location, and that way when we open, it's game on. Yeah,
and that's and it's just smart to do. When I opened up my Tampa location, I did the same thing. I did it a tiny bit differently. The first thing I did was I brought donuts to every single business around me. So I'd get dressed in my uniform and I had donuts. That doesn't sound very good, but that's what we did. And we'd walk into every business and I'd just say, "Hey, I'm your new neighbor. Here's some donuts." And then a week later, I'd say, "Hey, I'm your new neighbor. We're opening the karate school here. Here's some donuts. And by the way, if you want to come down and try it out, I'd love to have you." But just building that rapport with all those people. We also we enrolled 100 people before we opened up our Tampa location, and we still had 3 months by time, because the rent didn't start until we officially opened, right?
Yeah.
And so we had 3 months where we added another 100 members on. So, and I've done it the other way too, where you didn't have any students when you opened, and that was stressful, man.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like across my forehead was like, I'm desperate to get you enrolled.
It happens to the best of us.
Yes, sir. It sure does. Yeah, man, this is really great. Maybe we'll have you on again and we'll discuss more of these strategies that people can use, because I know there's people out there listening that there might even be part-time. They might be at a gym, or they might be at they rented some space from a church or something. And they want desperately to make the jump to be a full-time school owner, to be able to share their knowledge with their communities in a more powerful way. So we can do that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. All right. Hey, Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was really valuable for a lot of people.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. See ya.
Thanks for joining us on the Membership Business Growth Podcast. We hope you take what you learned and use it to propel your business to new heights. For more information, episodes, show notes, and to get social, hit us at membershipbusinessgrowth.com. Membershipbusinessgrowth.com. If you want to go deeper or send us comments, you can email ron@sparkmembership.com. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Membership Business Growth Podcast with Ron Sell. Thanks again for listening.